In what ways are you influencing your kids? Is it a positive influence or a not so positive influence? Are you influencing them consciously or unconsciously? What you feed your kids and how you feed your kids has a much bigger impact on the long run and on the outcome of their adult lives, their future choices, and how they interact with the world than just their eating habits. Let's talk about this. The first 7 years of a child's life is the most critical. You may have heard this before, but do you know why? This is because during the first 5 to 7 years of a child's life, not only are they growing physically, but this is the time when their brain is developing the most it will ever in their whole entire lives. By the time that they're 7, their brain will be almost grown into a full-size adult human brain. And during this growing process, they're like a sponge. They absorb everything around them. They observe. They take everything that's happening to them and around them into consideration. And all of these experiences, all of these moments, all of these memories, they are what form the foundation of what that being is going to be later on in their life. Be it good or bad, intentional or unintentional, the first 7 years of a human's life is what will determine how we will interact with the world later in our adult lives. This channel is not about neuroscience or psychology or anything like this. It's about food and what it means to us and how we interact with it. So you may be wondering, what does this have anything to do with food? The reason being is that what you feed your kids during the first 7 years of their life will determine, yes, their eating habits, but also so much more. I'm concerned that because of marketing, packaging, convenience, and social norms, we are inevitably feeding our kids what they shouldn't actually be eating and what might negatively impact their future health outcomes later on in life, and a different outlook of how they interact with the world than it could have been if you had done a few things differently early on. I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong, but I wanted to share with you my upbringing and what I can now see that my family did early on that has now led me to have this relationship with food that I have today. No, I don't think the things we talk about today lead to your kids becoming chefs or food content creators or anything like that. That is not a guarantee. But what is almost a guarantee is if you do what we talk about today in this video, your kids will more likely have a lifelong skill of feeding themselves well. They will be functional, healthy adults. They will be more creative. They will be more flexible when things don't go their way. And hopefully they'll also have a positive impact on their future kids, maybe your future grandkids, and everybody around them. When I say interact with the world, it means their social interactions, their emotional interactions, their behavior, their thinking, their problem solving, their communication skills. It means how they go about creating and building their lives and how them going through their lives will impact those around them. Don't you want that to be a positive thing? How you feed your kids can also be a way of teaching them your personal values and traditions. It can be about shaping how they understand the world, how they view different realities, what is important, what isn't important, why things matter, why some things don't. Feeding your kids is not just about making sure they don't go hungry. Feeding kids, or even feeding yourself, it's about the experience. It's about who prepared it. It's about how you're eating it. Are you eating it with other people? Are you eating it looking at the TV? Everything around food is so important. Yet somehow we have forgotten this, and everything comes down to convenience. When it comes to positively influencing your child during those first 7 years of development, food is not the only important thing, but it is a big one. And I do find that unfortunately we are not giving it as much significance as we should be during these first 7 years. Lucky for you, food is actually one of the easiest and simplest ways that you can positively influence your child. So why not make that a priority, and hopefully everything else will align during that journey of trying to give your kid the best life they can possibly have. Yes, it's a big responsibility, and this isn't an easy topic to think about. Everybody parents differently. This is not me telling you how to parent. Obviously, I didn't have a perfect upbringing, but hopefully by sharing with you what I think my family did really well in my upbringing can give you a little bit of insight on what you could be doing differently or what you could be doing more of whilst raising your kid to positively influence them as well. I think the biggest thing overall is that kids are like a sponge. They're taking in everything around them, whether it's you sneezing, you drinking a glass of water or a glass of wine. What you say, what you do, what their friends do, what their teachers do, they're absorbing everything and analyzing and making decisions of what they should take onto their lives and what they shouldn't, but not in a conscious way. So since they're not doing this consciously like we do as adults, the easiest way that you can make sure that what they are absorbing into their lives are positive is by you setting the example firsthand. You walk the talk. If somebody had to ask me one lesson that my mom tried to teach me by sitting me down and having a chat with me, I could not be able to name a single one. But now I see that there are hundreds of different things that she did, that other people around me did, that influenced who I am today. So what are your actions and behaviors that you are doing around your kid that could be influencing them? And remember, especially when it comes to food, by you eating well and setting that example, not only are you being a good role model, but you're also taking care of yourself and making sure that you have better quality of life so that you can play with your kids more, you have more energy, you live longer and are there for more years of their lives and maybe your grandchildren's lives. Setting a good example is not just about them, but about you as well. So let's back it a little bit and discuss the issue. If you go to the supermarket, there are aisles and aisles and aisles full of packaged food, full of conservative, and no, they're not all bad, but why does it seem that some of the worst foods in that store are always marketed towards kids? Just to name a few, tell me if you disagree that these are not targeted towards children. Yes, adults may still eat them occasionally, but through the packaging alone, tell me how this is not supposed to catch a kid's eye. Lollies, fairy floss, ice cream, cereal, biscuits, caramel, chocolate, chips, all of these things are either colorful or they have a cartoon character. So how are these not targeted towards kids? And here in Australia, we do have a health star rating. Here you can see that, yeah, a lot of these things are rated quite low on the health star rating. So even that alone is something that I usually don't agree with. At least this we can agree that these foods are unhealthy. So if they're unhealthy, why are they being targeted towards kids when during these infant years they should be eating the best foods? Because not only are their brain developing, but everything, their taste buds, their digestive system, their muscles, their attention span, their emotional response, everything about a kid is easily influenced. So feeding them sugar in everything that they eat or feeding them these foods are ultimately not going to benefit your child during this growth process. I'm not telling you that these should be banned. I'm not telling you that you're a bad parent if you do feed your kids these things. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not your fault. It's a societal fault, right? It's the marketer's fault. Inevitably, even if you don't want to feed your kids these things, the packaging will attract them and they will eventually ask for it. If you go to the dentist and the dentist gives your kid a lollipop as a reward, when it was already hard enough to get your kid to go to the dentist and they are finally happy because they got a lollipop, how are you supposed to say no? And isn't that counterintuitive? You're taking your kid to the dentist to make sure that their teeth are well, and then the dentist gives them something that is just going to rot their teeth even more? How hypocritical is that? These things are what bother me. These things are what I feel is wrong. It's not your parenting style. It's not a matter of being the perfect parent who never feeds their kids sugar. But how can you minimize? How can these things be the occasional, but also not seen as a treat or a reward of kinds? Because a reward is supposed to be good. It's supposed to be something that reinforces positive behavior. So if we're reinforcing positive behavior with something bad, then we are teaching the kids that that is something good, not something bad. So when they ultimately end up asking for these things, in a time where they don't require a reward and they simply just want it? How are you supposed to tell them that that is a bad thing when yesterday it was something positive and used to reward good behavior? Kids don't yet have all the knowledge they need to understand what is good or bad, especially when it comes to food. When it comes to teaching a child that hitting another person is bad, they can see the outcome. If they get hit, they understand that it hurts. So when they hit somebody else, they will know that they hurt that person. But when it comes to healthy food, unhealthy food, what is good for you, what is bad for you, kids can't understand because there's no direct correlation. Because when they eat something that may not be good for them, they still feel good. So how are they supposed to know? It's up to you to make them understand that difference. And there are many different ways that you can go about doing this. Hopefully I'm making some sense in all of this and I'm not just coming out as
a bitter lady who doesn't like lollies.
Let me know if you disagree. I think there is definitely something messed up in all of this and it's not your fault. And this is simply how people have always done it. But if you think about it, all of these items are all new. They are all only 2 generations old. So who were the people teaching us how to eat these things? The marketers, the people who made these things. So no, I don't blame you if sometimes you reward your kid with a lollipop or a piece of candy or a chocolate bar, because that's what we've been taught to do. But now you also have access to more information. Now, hopefully you know a bit better, and by having this discussion, you can start thinking about other ways to still reward your kid or to positively influence them without using these things. No, I don't think you have to be the person who, when your kid goes to a birthday party, you don't let them have anything, because I actually think that could end up leading to a whole bunch of different problems of exclusion, of your kid feeling left out. But hopefully as well, by doing the right thing and setting the right example, your kid will be the one saying no thanks at those birthday parties, you know? You don't have to tell them what to do at all times. By setting the right example and making sure they understand why these things are not good for them, they will, as they get older, start being able to make their own decisions of what they want to eat, what they don't want to eat. So things don't have to be so strict and things don't have to be so black and white. And I truly believe that kids are much smarter than when we place them, and they are totally capable of having smart conversations and understanding when we put things in words and examples that they can understand. It doesn't have to be complex. As a kid, if you don't have these discussions with them, they're going to ultimately be super confused. Of course they are. If during Halloween, during Easter, maybe even their birthday, they are allowed to eat as much candy and chocolate as they'd like, but then after school, if they want just one piece of candy, you tell them no, how are they supposed to understand the difference? How is this not going to lead to binge eating behaviors later on in life? Even when I look back to my own childhood, I definitely feel like I eat much better now than I did back then because of these norms. I didn't see the adults in my family eating it, but it was just what it was, you know? You're a kid, so you eat biscuits. You're a kid, so you get a chewing gum for doing the right thing. I ate so much of these bad things, yet the adults weren't eating them. And if they were definitely eating less than I was. So why? Moral of the story of the issue is talk to your kids, make sure you set good examples, and by making them understand what is good and what is not good, what should be eaten in moderation and what shouldn't, then they will in turn have a much easier and healthy relationship with food later on in life. As maybe you are finding right now, as I am, so much of what food means to people now is, will it make me fat? Counting macros. And when people struggle to find a balance and make healthy choices, no, this is not fat shaming. I won't deny I might get a bit of hate for saying this, but I think, yes, it's okay to love yourself and not hate yourself for the way you look. Absolutely. We are not just how we look, but if we are telling people to love themselves the way they are when their selves are unhealthy, that is not a good thing. If you're teaching themselves to love themselves during the process of becoming a healthy person, I can get on board with that. But if you're just telling somebody that they're overweight, they have diabetes, they get puffed going up a set of stairs, and that's okay, that is not okay. Now is the time where you get to decide what kind of adult you want your kids to be. No, you don't have control of their adult choices later on in life, but you can do your best to hopefully influence them so that they make wise decisions later on in life. I truly believe it's a parent's responsibility to do this. And although it sounds like a lot of work, and just using the word responsibility on its own makes it seem like a big deal, it shouldn't be. It should be just you being you, going on with your life, living your best life, living your healthiest life. And by doing that and doing that around your kid, they will absorb that and take that as a positive influence, as a positive example, as you being the best role model you can possibly be. You may already be doing it, and this is just a video reinforcing that what you're doing is the right thing. And maybe you're listening to this and seeing things that you could be doing slightly differently or drastically differently, and that's okay. No matter where you are on this journey, the point is you got this and you can do it, and everything that you've done so far is not wrong. Maybe you just didn't have the knowledge, you hadn't put the dots in your brain yet of how much of an influence you are having and how you feed your kid during these early years. And not just during these early years, but throughout their whole lives. Like I said, we're never going to be perfect. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, so everything you've done so far is absolutely okay. And it's up to you whether you want to make a change or stay the same. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Simply have discussions with you about what we could be doing differently. So as promised, even though this has already been quite a long video, I wanted to share with you my story and what I think my mom and my family did during my childhood that led me to think the way I do now and be the person who I am today and the relationship I have with food. So, story time. I grew up in Brazil at my grandparents' house. It was me, my mom, my grandma, my grandpa on the top level of my house, and downstairs it was my auntie, my uncle, and my cousin. Later to have 2 cousins, but then by then we had moved to Australia already. So 2 families, 1 house, and that was only a fraction of my family. I've already mentioned many times here before that one of my fondest memories of being a kid in Brazil is coming back from school and hearing the sound of the pressure cooker of my grandma making lunch every single day. That alone says a lot. But she wasn't the only person that cooked in my life. My aunts were regularly at home also cooking on the weekends or on special occasions. Even my grandpa sometimes got in the kitchen to help out. Although nobody ever taught me how to cook, I was constantly surrounded by people cooking around me, by the memories of people gathering around the dinner table, by every single meal being at the dinner table, eating together, laughing together, of multiple things being served, of sometimes being so many people at home that there wasn't enough space on the dinner table that people simply sat anywhere they could or even ate on their laps, but we still ate together and chatted and laughed all while eating together. When weekends rolled around, my house was never empty. There was always some extended family there, or if it wasn't at our house, we would be the ones going to somewhere else. When we went over to somebody's place, we would never be empty-handed. The minimum we would bring is a dozen bread rolls for afternoon tea and maybe some sliced cheese. If you were a little bit more prepared, we would bring a cake, a side dish, or a salad to help out with lunch. But empty-handed was never an option. No matter who it was that knocked on our door, would be the postman, the neighbor, the tradie doing renovations in the neighbor's house, family. As soon as they walked in the door, they would be offered a glass of water and something to eat. These actions, they were not really about the food or feeding people, but they say a lot more about the values of who my grandpa was, who my grandma was, what my family valued, than simply not going hungry. To this day, when I go to my grandpa's house, he will have a feast in front of me and he will still apologize for something not being there. My grandma's now passed away, but I still have people in my family who do it. If you go to eat at their house and you show that you enjoyed the meal, they will be serving more food on your plate before you even asked. Food was a huge part of my upbringing. My grandpa used to say to all of his kids and grandkids, I can't give you an education, I can't give you a car, but what I can give you is a roof over your head and food on the table. Food is a way of showing affection, of showing care, of bringing people that you love together to create more memories and enjoy life for what it should be. Time. The time we have spent with one another. Nothing should be more important than that. And food was simply the glue that brought people together. Once we moved to Australia when I was 9, my mum, although she cooks, she wasn't actually the best cook in the family. So having grown up with my aunts and my grandma and so much good food around me all the time, when my mum was cooking here, I was like, I know this can be better. And I took matters onto my own hands and I taught myself how to cook. In her own way, she was always there supporting me and helping me take on that journey of learning how to cook, even from a very young age. So from there, every Mother's Day and every year on her birthday, she was always gifted a 3-course meal or a special breakfast of some sorts. And fast forward to now that I am an adult, some of my biggest pleasures in life is feeding my friends and my family members, is having people over, whether it's just for an afternoon coffee or whether it's for an entire dinner, and my fiance telling me that he misses my cooking when he's away from work. That brings me joy and that puts a smile on my face. I recently read a book called The Big Fat Surprise, and it talked a lot about how the Mediterranean diet isn't so much beneficial for you in terms of its nutritional benefits, but the cultural and social aspects of it instead. The Mediterranean diet is actually so varied in terms of different countries, different regions, but what it all has in common is that people are always sharing food. They use food as a way to celebrate life. They have festivals about food. It reinforces family union. People in those countries are often less stressed in comparison to other areas of the world like big cities. It's all about the social connection that the people in that area has, and like in my upbringing and my family, food was just a tool to do that. It doesn't matter what the food is. So although I do go on about healthy eating and influencing your kids on what to eat and what not to eat, I do think that when it comes to positively influencing your kids, it's not all about nutrition, but it's also a lot about the traditions, the habits you form around food and eating time, the values you try to bring to your kids through food. So for the next 2 videos in my channel, we will be going further into these topics of traditions, habits, and values, how you can be more intentional about meal times and how food is presented to your kid and the discussions around it as well. So if you're interested in exploring more of these discussions with me, make sure to click the subscribe button below and turn on the notifications so that you don't miss out when these videos come out very shortly. I hope to see you there. You're watching Food for Days.